QPR round off a 3-game week with a trip to Derby County on Saturday afternoon, so I caught up with Chris, writer of Rams blog It's Sheep We're Up Against, to hear his take on a difficult start to the season, the home side standout players, and his prediction for Saturday. If you're new to the channel, I'm Connor aka Hoopser. I talk all things QPR, so if you enjoy this match preview and you fancy sticking around for more on the Super Hoops in future, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Hello Chris, welcome to the channel for a Derby County versus Queen's Park Rangers match preview. How are you, first of all?
Very good, Connor. Very good. Looking forward to the game. And yeah, thanks very much for having me on.
No problem at all. Now, it's been a tough start to the season, but Derby County finally put a second win on the board on Tuesday evening. 1-0 home victory over Norwich, sending the Canaries into the relegation zone. Talk to me about the season so far. Why has it been so tricky? And more importantly, what changed against Norwich?
Yeah, of course. I think it's been a case of one step forward, two steps backwards for us this season. We've kind of spluttered a bit. We've kind of every time we think we're getting going, we then seem to have an off week. And you're absolutely right. We got our first home win against Norwich on Tuesday. So if you follow that form guide, it means you guys will be totally fine on Saturday because we'll have our off week again. I think part of it has been due to the fact that we've gone through a lot of change again during the close season. We stayed up last season by the skin of our teeth. There was a lot of personnel change for us in the summer. A lot of players coming in. A lot of the, dare I say it, the League One standard players that we kind of came up with the season before were kind of jettisoned. And then in typical Derby County fashion, we always seem to sign players who are injured. We've only just starting to get them coming back in now into the squad. So Eustace is having a pretty much a full estate to pick from. Otherwise, actually, we do have some injuries for this Saturday, but we'll talk about that in a minute, I'm sure. But it kind of feels like our season's only just getting going because we just haven't had the squad to pick from. And so there's been a lot of chopping and change, a lot of change in formation. And yeah, we just kind of spluttered. But yeah, it was really nice to get a first win. I mean, it makes such a difference. So yeah, let's see where we are against you guys. Hopefully we'll keep that going.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, John Eustace presumably has a lot of goodwill in the bank after steering the Rams to safety from February onwards. I assume, based on what you've just said about sort of the injuries this season, that's not wavered at all so far?
Well, there's a story, and I assume you're coming up for the game on Saturday, Connor. It has wavered, which disappoints me to say, but there has been some questioning, I think, from certain, not all the sections of the fan base, but some. I think part of the problem has been, that fans of, I wouldn't say have short memories because he did amazing to keep us up, with what he had to work with. But I think that just the expectations this season were a little bit higher. I think at the start of the season there was a lot of talk about we're going to change the style of play. We're going to go a bit more front foot. 4-2-3-1's probably going to be the way we're going to play, and we're going to be a little bit more attractive to watch. And some people were very naively, I think, talking about we're going to make top six. I don't think anyone realistically thought that was going to be the case, but perhaps mid-table was the plan. And like I said earlier, that hasn't really happened. We've kind of spluttered a bit. And so what we've seen, I mean, we were away at Oxford, 2 weeks ago, and in the away end, there was quite a lot of bile coming out of there, I think, to the players as well as the manager afterwards. Yeah, frustration at the full time. But what you'll find, I think, is if things aren't going well, and they weren't going well at half time against Norwich on Tuesday, the booing is quite quick to start. And I think it's just a combination of the fact that, we have been quite unattractive to watch. It's been quite agricultural at times. And I think the combination of that and just frustration of, well, why aren't we winning games when we've got all these new players is kind of boiling over a bit. But that's just from certain sections of the fan base. The vast majority are behind the manager. And I think if we are winning, sing when you're winning is the old classic cliche. But, if we are, then, the play starts to pick up a bit. But that's football fans for you.
So who would you say have been the standout players so far? And you mentioned there's been a bit of a chopping and changing in terms of formation. How would you expect Eustace to set up Derby against QPR on Saturday?
I would expect, and we have changed formation a lot this season. So it's a very Derby thing to do, to start with one formation and end up with another, and then transfer that into the next game, and then nothing's going right, so we change back again. We finished against Norwich in very much it's more of a 3-4-3, but when we're defending a 5-3-2, with a back five. That seemed to suit us better against Norwich. So I would expect us to start with a back five that becomes like a 3-4-3 when we're going forward. That seems to suit the fact that we've got a plethora of defenders, and it's that kind of foundation that Eustace builds his side on. I would expect QPR, given the sort of football that you guys play and a strong away record, you're probably going to have about 65% possession against us. We'll sit in a low block. It's what we always do. And then we'll try and play a bit more direct and steal things from set pieces and crosses. So expect to have a lot of possession. In terms of players, to pick a couple out for you, the goalkeeper is very, very highly thought of. Jakob Vidal Zetterstrom. Brentford was sniffing around him early in the close season. He has got the potential to play at a lot higher level, and he's probably been our best player this season, which probably tells you a lot. But very good on crosses, very good on 1v1. So definitely have a look at him. Up front, we've got Carlton Morris that we signed from Luton. He's been around the Championship many times before, played in the Premier League. He's actually surprised us. A lot better player than we thought. So Carlton Morris is a big guy, but his first touch is very, very good. And then alongside him, perhaps the other player to keep an eye on is Patrick Agyemang. Now, we actually spent about £5 million on him in the summer, which for Derby is almost unheard of. It took a big risk. He's 6'7", so you can't miss him. Lightning quick. Sometimes you're probably not quite sure what he's going to do with the ball. Maybe not sure he does either, but he's kind of effective. And him and Morris up front, so if we kind of go sort of 5-3-2, those two are a handful. And Agyemang is, coming with some assists and a goal. Morris is our top goal scorer. So those two up top, will cause teams problems. So those are the ones to really keep an eye on. Maybe the other one to mention is a young chap called David Ozo. He's on loan from Crystal Palace, plays in the central midfield. He scored in midweek against Norwich. He's highly thought of. It's a shame he's not our player, but you can see he's got something for maybe a higher level in the future. So a couple to keep an eye on there.
I think the fact that you said that, you're expecting Rangers to have 65% possession is probably going to put the fear into most QPR fans. We haven't actually won a game this season in which we've had more possession than our opposition. So on the flip side, where can Rangers cause Derby problems on Saturday?
Well, it's interesting. I was on one of these a couple of weeks ago with a chap called Martin from the Southampton Football Martin channel. And I basically said to him, look, Derby have not scored more than one goal this season apart from one game. And if it's anything like any of our home games, what normally will happen is you'll have all the ball, you'll go 1-0 up, and then failure to kill us off, and then always means we nick something towards the end. So if I was QPR, and I said the same to the chaps from Southampton, is if you dominate the ball and if you go for us and you can get two up, that's probably going to be game over. Where we're at our best is if you start lumping the ball in the box. We've got a lot of big centre halves. We play with, like I said, we're going to probably play with a back three. So Langas, Dion Sanderson, and Matt Clark, very experienced defenders. You won't get much change out of us from trying to be, physical and get the ball in the box. And likewise, we're going to probably try and do the same to you at the far end. But if you keep possession and you play through us, we're not probably the quickest at the back. Either. But it's about actually just being positive and finishing us off, beg your pardon. Most of the sides that have come to Pride Park, Bristol City were one, Norwich another. They kind of went 1-0 up. Charlton were the same, but then didn't kill us off. Get to 2 goals and just don't see us coming back from that, to be totally honest.
Well, Derby did an absolute job on QPR last time out at Pride Park, 2-0
Yes.
last season. So to round us off, let's get your score prediction for this time round.
I'd say if it's anything like all of our home games, it's going to be a 1-1 draw. Like I say, you'll go 1 up. The crowd will boo at half time, and then we'll get going in the second half. We'll muscle a goal in, probably from a centre half from a set piece. And then we'll go home thinking, why on earth did we not start like that? So I'm going for a 1-1, Connor. But given your away form, I think you'd probably be a little bit more positive.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining me for this preview, and all the best for the season after Saturday, of course.
Thanks, Connor. Have a safe journey up, and enjoy the game.
Thanks so much again to Chris for joining me for this preview. Make sure you give him a follow down below. I found it really interesting chatting to Chris because despite the two teams being in very different positions, I couldn't help but be reminded of Millwall in the way that he spoke about Derby. First of all, because of that physical and tall backline, which if we decide to pump in crosses against like we did last weekend, I don't think we're going to have much fun against. I think our best game is played with the ball mostly on the floor like those early stages against Swansea, so hopefully Stefan and co recognise that ahead of the trip. I was also reminded of Millwall because of the counter-attacking potential that Derby have up top. Carlton Morris still level on goal involvements with Kone despite being at opposite ends of the table, though two of those were both from the spot. It feels like if we've done our homework, we can probably negate the potential the Rams have, but if we go into this one expecting an easy ride, I wouldn't be surprised to see a similar result to this trip last season. As Chris already said, that first goal, and probably more significantly the second, will be the most crucial, and that poses an interesting challenge for Rangers because only once at Wrexham have QPR gone 2 goals clear this season without their opposition scoring in between. The tricky prospect of this fixture is further compounded by the fact that Derby don't typically have a lot of the ball, a concept you would expect most teams to desire but feels like pure kryptonite for Rangers this season. That means we'll have to be purposeful and have our creative players on the pitch from the get-go if we want to force the issue early. Right, so let's round off with a score prediction. We're marginally better on the road this season and I'm going to back that to continue. I'm actually going to go for a 2-0 away win. How about you? What do you think the score is going to be? How do you think this one's going to play out? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for tuning in as ever. As I said at the start, if you're new to the channel and you fancy sticking around for more content, please hit like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you again for my match reaction. Come on, you Rs.